Hi, I am Julia. Nice to meet you. Before I tell you my story, kindly tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I like to know where you are from. Now let's dive in. I should have known from the moment I walked in. The way the music cut off for just a beat, no one stopped talking, no heads turned. Just that awkward second where my presence hit the air and was immediately swallowed like it didn't matter. It was my brother Daniel's birthday. 35. Big bash. Balloons. A string quartet playing covers of 2000s R&B. Because of course. Mom had been buzzing about it in the family group chat for weeks. Outfits, guest list, centerpieces. I hadn't been asked to help plan, but I showed up early anyway. Thought maybe this time I could be included. Stupid. The first thing my sister-in-law Dana said to me wasn't, "Hi," or "Good to see you." It was, "Oh, Julia, thank God. The caterers are late. Could you help bring out the wine glasses from the kitchen?" I froze. Not because I minded helping. I didn't. But I realized in that moment, I hadn't even taken my coat off. I was still standing in the entryway with a gift bag in my hand, lipstick not fully dry, and here I was being handed a job. I smiled, nodded, and did it. The kitchen was full of strangers. Hard staff. One of them, a girl maybe 21 with a nose ring and a tired bun, looked at me and asked, "Are you with the event crew?" I said no. But the look in her eyes said, "Are you sure?" By the time guests started arriving, I had already set out glassware, adjusted the desserts on the tray, and lit candles in the hallway. I watched as cousins I hadn't seen in years got hugs and kisses. One even brought his girlfriend. She got ushered in with a round of applause. Me? I stood by the bar unnoticed. Then came the part that shattered everything. "All right. Family photo," someone shouted. Chairs were dragged over. Someone found the good camera, and suddenly everyone was lining up. Mom, Dad, Daniel, Dana, Aunt Felicia, Uncle Greg, even cousins who lived across the country. I stepped forward, smiled. I wasn't going to be left out this time. But then Dana turned and said, "Oh, just immediate family for this one." I blinked. "Immediate?" "I'm his sister," I said. It came out softer than I meant. Like I was asking for permission instead of stating a fact. She tilted her head. "Yeah, but like, the core family. You know." Everyone laughed a little, awkwardly, like they knew it was wrong but not wrong enough to stop. I backed away. I watched through the reflection in the glass cabinet as the flash popped and the camera captured a perfect, smiling lie. One that I wasn't allowed to be part of. Afterward, I tried to find my things, keys, purse, pride, but the coat closet had been cleared for gifts. Someone handed me a paper bag with a thank you cookie in it. No one stopped me as I slipped out the back door. But just before I left, I saw it. On the kitchen island, beneath a half-eaten red velvet cake, was an envelope. My name scribbled on it. Julia. I opened it. Inside was a card. On the front, a cartoon cat holding balloons. On the inside, just 4 handwritten words. "Maybe next year, Julia." That was it. No love. No signature. No joke. Just a reminder that even my presence came with an expiration date, and it had already passed. I walked home. No music. No phone. Just the sound of my own breath and the slow, deliberate clicks of my heels on the pavement, each step louder than the last. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. What I felt was sharp. Cold. A clarity I hadn't had before. Like the world had shifted, and for once, I was seeing it clearly, not as I hoped it would be, but exactly as it was. They didn't forget me. They erased me. On purpose. And maybe I'd been helping them do it all along. I didn't sleep that night. The card sat on my nightstand, unopened again, even though I already knew what it said. I kept rereading it in my head like it had more to tell me, like maybe I missed a line, a hidden punchline, something that would make it hurt less. But no, just, "Maybe next year, Julia." No smiley face. No love, Mom. Just a sentence dressed like a joke but soaked in spite. I'd been dismissed before, but this felt deliberate. Scripted. Like they'd rehearsed it without me. I sat in bed, staring at the ceiling, my hands still smelling faintly of candle wax and shrimp skewers. I hadn't even eaten at the party. Somewhere between setting the wine glasses and getting excluded from the photo, I'd forgotten to make myself a plate. That realization made me laugh. Not the funny kind. The broken kind that feels like a cough got twisted into a sob. The next morning, I opened the family group chat, not to speak, just to observe. There were photos from the party. Videos of Daniel blowing out his candles, clips of my dad trying to dance, blurry shots of smiling faces. I wasn't in a single one. But that wasn't the worst part. Someone, probably Dana, had uploaded the family photo as the group header. That glossy, carefully curated portrait with perfect smiles and perfectly matched outfits. Everyone looked like they belonged in a toothpaste commercial. Except I didn't. Because I wasn't there. Underneath the photo, my Aunt Felicia commented, "Finally, a picture of the whole family, red heart, red heart." That did it. I left the chat. No dramatic message. No call out. Just exit. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. A direct message from my cousin Amanda. "You okay?" I stared at the message. Typed "yeah" and deleted it. Typed "I'm fine" and deleted that too. Then I put my phone down and walked away. For most of my life, I told myself I was imagining it. The way they made decisions without me. The way they talked over me at dinners. The way holidays came and went without anyone asking what I was doing. But that card changed everything. Because there's a difference between being overlooked and being excluded. And I think deep down, I always knew. Later that day, I pulled out an old box of keepsakes from my closet. Letters. Birthday cards. Torn bits of wrapping paper I once thought were sweet to keep. I spread them across the floor, looking for patterns I'd ignored before. And I saw them. Cards with my name misspelled. Notes that read, "Hope this year is better," instead of "Hope it's great." Even a birthday gift tag from 5 years ago that said "To Jules, Danny's sister," in my own mother's handwriting. It was like I was never seen as my own person, just a support character in someone else's story. Something cracked open in me then. Not a wound. A door. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was going to write. I just knew I couldn't carry it in silence anymore. I started with one sentence. "My name is Julia, and I spent my brother's birthday serving wine and being erased." Then the words came pouring out. Memories, fragments, all the small humiliations I had packaged as family quirks for years. How I was asked to babysit but never invited to dinner. How my job in social work was called cute, while my cousin's marketing internship got a standing ovation at Thanksgiving. How I was always just enough to be useful, but never enough to be valued. By the time I finished, it wasn't a journal entry anymore. It was a confession. A reckoning. Maybe a beginning. I hovered over the post button on my anonymous blog. 4 or 5 minutes. Maybe more. Then I clicked. And with that single act, something shifted. For the first time in my life, I didn't wait for their approval. I didn't ask for permission to speak. I just told the truth. The night I published the blog post, I expected regret. I thought I'd panic, maybe even delete it before anyone saw. That I'd wake up in a cold sweat wondering what I'd done. But none of that happened. Instead, I slept. Deeply. For the first time in months. And when I woke up, something felt different. Not lighter, exactly. More like I wasn't dragging something behind me anymore. Like I'd stopped holding my breath and didn't even realize I'd been doing it for years. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. Just the notification from the blog platform. Your story has received 872 views. What? I refreshed. 1009. I blinked at the screen. Comments had started to come in. Strangers. Real people. Writing things like, "This was my Christmas last year." Down to the help out and the group photo. "You are not alone." I felt every word. My family did this to me too. Thank you for saying it out loud. Each message chipped away at something heavy inside me. Not just the loneliness. The doubt. Because here they were. People who didn't know me, who had no reason to fake kindness. Validating the very pain I had been gaslit out of recognizing for years. I hadn't overreacted. I hadn't made it up. I hadn't imagined the hurt. I sat on the floor with a cup of tea, staring out the window. Outside, the world moved like nothing had changed. Cars passing, kids walking to school, dogs barking in the park. But inside, I was shifting. It's strange, the way grief works. I always thought it came with screaming, sobbing, clutching your chest like in the movies. But that night, sitting in that silence, I didn't cry. Not a single tear. Instead, I felt still. And in that stillness, I heard something I hadn't heard in a long time. My own voice. Not the shaky, uncertain one I used around my mother. Not the overly cheerful one I used to sound normal at work. Not the quiet one I used at family dinners when I didn't want to rock the boat. Just me. Clear. Calm. Whole. That scared me more than anything. Because if I had found peace in absence, if I had felt more seen by strangers than I ever had in my own family, what did that say about what I'd been calling love all these years? What had I been trying so hard to fix? The phone rang around 9 p.m. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. I figured if it was important, they'd leave a message. They didn't. Another hour passed. Then came a text from an unknown number. You should be ashamed of yourself. No name. No context. But I knew who it was from. That was the thing about my family. They never said what they meant. They let silence carry the violence. Or little jabs hidden behind polite phrasing. Passive-aggressive emojis. Vague posts on Facebook. But this was new. And almost funny. Because they'd finally said it outright. I was the one bringing shame. Not the people who erased me from their photo. Not the ones who handed me wine glasses instead of a welcome. Not the ones who left me a card that mocked my existence. Nope. I was the villain now. For telling the truth. I took a deep breath. Set my phone down again. And smiled. Not because I wasn't hurt. But because, for once, the pain didn't twist me into apology. I didn't scramble to explain, or soften the blow, or beg to be understood. I didn't go running back into the house that burned me down. I just let it be. The night I didn't cry, I realized something no one in my family had ever told me. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes, it comes from finally walking away. And not looking back. I didn't plan for it to go viral. Honestly, I wasn't even sure it could. I'd posted my blog under a pen name, just Jules A. No photos. No links to my real life. I didn't want attention. I wanted oxygen. But by the second day, my story had 12,000 views. Then 28,000. By the end of the week, over 100,000. It started getting shared on forums about toxic family dynamics, estranged children, trauma recovery pages. Someone stitched my words into a TikTok video with soft piano music and whispered narration. It had 500,000 likes before I even saw it. And in every corner of the internet, people were talking about me, about us. The ones who showed up with full hearts and empty plates. The ones who tried to earn love in places where it was handed out with conditions. The ones who were called too sensitive or difficult because we noticed the way the room went cold when we entered it. I sat on my couch reading comment after comment, some from usernames like daughter on mute or not the golden one. I set the table. I cleaned up. But I was never invited to sit. My mom told people I was just going through a phase when I moved out. It's been 7 years. I took screenshots of your post and sent them to my therapist. Thank you for putting it into words. And beneath it all was this quiet undercurrent of rage, not the explosive kind, but the low, aching kind. The kind that simmers under the surface when you've been hurt for so long you've convinced yourself it's normal. It wasn't just me. It was never just me. That realization was equal parts comfort and heartbreak. Because while it made me feel less alone, it also proved something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't rare. This was common. All these daughters, sons, siblings, exiles from their own bloodlines, orbiting around families that kept them close enough to use, but never close enough to love. We were ghosts at our own tables. Then came the emails. Dozens. Then hundreds. People sharing their stories. Asking for advice. Telling me I had named something they hadn't been able to say out loud. A woman in her 60s wrote, "I've lived in silence my entire adult life. I thought if I waited long enough, they'd love me right. Thank you for showing me I don't have to keep waiting." Another wrote, "Can I send your post to my daughter? She hasn't spoken to me in years. I think I finally understand why. That one wrecked me. Because I realized something else. Something I hadn't expected. Some people weren't just relating to me. They were recognizing themselves as the reason someone else had walked away. Still, as the numbers climbed and the reach grew, a familiar fear crept in. What happens when my family finds out? I had kept my name out of it. No photos. No identifying details. But I knew it was only a matter of time. People talk. Posts circulate. Screenshots get forwarded. And my family? They're experts in reading between the lines. Especially when it comes to being offended. They wouldn't care about why I wrote it. They'd only care that I dared to. But for the first time, that didn't stop me. Because what had they ever protected me from? I had spent most of my adult life keeping their secrets, swallowing their neglect, and shrinking myself into a version that fit at their table, if only barely. And where had that gotten me? Serving drinks at a party I wasn't invited to. So no, I didn't owe them silence anymore. They had my silence for years. Now, they could live with my truth. That week, I started something new. I made a private Instagram page, just for people like me. I called it Uninvited But Free. I didn't promote it. Didn't even tell my closest friends. But within days, it had hundreds of followers. People were tagging it in their own stories, sharing quotes, telling me it felt like a home. I posted my first caption. It's okay if the family you were born into didn't see you. That doesn't mean you don't exist. It means they didn't deserve to. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt louder than I had ever been, even without raising my voice. It started with a text from my cousin Amanda. Not a hi or a how are you. Just a screenshot. My blog post. With a caption from my sister-in-law Dana on Facebook. There's always one attention seeker in every family. I stared at it for a full minute, heart thudding, before I laughed. A short, breathy, stunned laugh that didn't feel like it belonged to me. So they'd found it. I thought I'd feel terrified. But mostly, I felt tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. The kind that settles deep in your chest when you realize people will twist your pain into drama just to avoid facing their own guilt. I didn't respond to Dana. I didn't have to. Because within hours, the family group chat, yes, the same one I had quietly left, was on fire. My cousin sent me screenshots like she was passing me notes in a battlefield. If Julia has a problem with the family, she should say it to our faces. This is why we don't include her. She always makes everything about herself. This kind of betrayal? It's disgusting. And the one that stung the most, my mother's message. I'm embarrassed. She's clearly unstable. I felt like I'd been punched. Not because I hadn't expected it, but because some part of me still hoped someone in that group would say, wait, maybe she's telling the truth. But no one did. Not one. And in that silence, the worst kind of truth revealed itself. They never wanted to understand me. Just to silence me. That night, I paced my apartment for hours, phone in hand, every cell in my body screaming to defend myself. To write back. To explain. To say, you didn't see what you did to me. To say, I didn't ask for this distance, you built it. To say, I begged for scraps of love and called it a feast. But I didn't send anything. Because I finally saw the pattern, and I wasn't about to step back into it. Every time I spoke up, they made me the villain. Every time I stayed quiet, they made me the ghost. There was no version where I was simply heard. The next morning, I woke to more messages, this time from strangers. People defending me under Dana's public post. Others tagging my blog, reposting it with hashtags like #NoMoreSilence and #ToxicFamilyStillToxic. One comment stood out. Funny how families only start calling you a liar when you stop keeping their secrets. That one hit like gospel. A few hours later, I got a message from my older brother Daniel. Short. Cold. You need to shut this down. No. No hi. No, I saw what you wrote. Are you okay? Just a command. Like I was still the little sister meant to obey. Keep quiet. Disappear. I typed back. I didn't name anyone. If the shoe fits, it's not my fault you wore it. Then I blocked his number. It felt like cutting a string that had been pulling me backward for years. That afternoon, I posted again. This time under my own name. No pseudonym. No hiding. I posted a video on my private but growing Instagram account. Just me, sitting on my couch. No script, just truth. Some of you have asked what happened since I shared my story. Well, my family found it. And now I'm unstable. I'm dramatic. I'm betraying them. But here's the thing, I didn't betray anyone. I told the truth. And if that makes me the bad guy in their story, fine. But at least I'm not playing the part they wrote for me anymore. I paused, looked directly into the lens, and said the words I had needed someone to say to me for years. If you're watching this and you feel like the black sheep in your family, you're not broken. You were just born into a system that only works if you stay small. Don't. Stay. Small. The video blew up. Hundreds of comments poured in. Some angry. Some triggered. Most grateful. And buried in the flood of notifications, I saw a name that made me freeze. David. My cousin. The quiet one. The one who never picked sides. Never spoke out. Never showed up. He left a comment that simply said, I see you. And I'm sorry I didn't sooner. I stared at those words until they blurred. Not because they fixed everything, but because they reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, someone else in that family was waking up too. It didn't take long after David's comment for the phone to ring. I let it buzz through twice before answering. I already knew who it was. Mom. Her name still made my stomach tighten, like a reflex I hadn't unlearned yet. I held the phone like it might bite. I didn't say hello. I just waited. She sighed into the line, sharp, annoyed, impatient. So, I guess you're really doing this. Not how are you? Not why did you write that? Not even I saw what you said. Just this. As if telling the truth was a spectacle. An act of defiance. I didn't say anything untrue, I replied. And I didn't name anyone. She scoffed. Don't insult me, Julia. You might as well have put a spotlight on us. I stayed silent. She hated silence. You've embarrassed the family, she said. Daniel is furious. Your aunt hasn't stopped calling. I don't even want to look at my phone anymore. I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. You don't want to look at your phone? I had spent years watching hers light up while my name never came up. What do you want from me? I asked. She paused. Take it down. All of it. The blog. The videos. The social media posts. Delete it and apologize. Publicly. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. Because she didn't ask how I felt. She didn't ask what led me to post it. She didn't ask if I was okay. She only wanted control. You want me to lie, I said quietly. I want you to stop airing our business like it's some entertainment channel, she snapped. We are family, Julia. That used to mean something. I felt something sharp rise in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Family means something when it protects you. Not when it erases you. That's when she said it. The words that cut through any illusion I still had. If you don't take everything down by the end of the day, she said, you're not welcome here anymore. Not we're hurt. Not let's talk. Not come over, let's sort this out face to face. Just a threat. A final push toward the edge of a cliff I had already stepped off. I didn't cry. Didn't beg. Didn't fold the way I used to. Instead, I asked her a question I never had the courage to ask before. When was I ever welcome? Dead silence. Then a click. She hung up. I sat on the floor, phone still warm in my hand, heart pounding. Not from pain, but from clarity. She thought I'd come crawling back. That I'd panic, backpedal, apologize like I always did when I was younger. That I'd sacrifice my voice to keep my seat at a table where I was never truly fed. But this time something was different. I didn't want to go back. Not even a little. That night, I opened my laptop and wrote another post. Not for attention. Not even for the followers. But for me, the younger version, the silenced girl who used to whisper her feelings into her pillow, wondering if she was the only one. The post was simple. Just a short caption with a photo of a door. My mother gave me a choice, her silence or my truth. I chose my truth. If that means I no longer have a mother, I guess I never really did. I expected backlash. I braced for it. But instead, something else happened. A wave of DMs. From people who had made the same choice. Your mom sounds like mine. I chose my truth too. It still hurts. But I can breathe again. They call it cutting you off. But sometimes it's you freeing yourself. And then, another comment from David. I heard about the call. I'm sorry, Jules. She's wrong. You're not crazy. You're brave. It was strange how that one sentence meant more than years of empty gestures from the rest of them. It didn't fix anything. But it reminded me I wasn't alone in the fallout. And maybe I wasn't the only one who was waking up. By midnight, I was sitting at my kitchen table with tea gone cold, looking at the list of blocked contacts on my phone. The list was longer now. My mother, Daniel, 2 aunts, an uncle I barely spoke to anyway. The weight of their silence no longer felt heavy. It felt like space, room to breathe, to grow, to exist without shrinking. Let them draw their lines in the sand. I was no longer standing on their beach. I was building my own shoreline, one post, one boundary, one truth at a time. The silence that followed my mother's ultimatum should have been deafening. But it wasn't. It was peaceful. Like the static had finally stopped. Like I could finally hear the sound of my own thoughts without the buzz of manipulation or the guilt humming in the background. And honestly, it felt like freedom. For the first time in years, my mornings didn't start with checking the family group chat, or worse, checking it and realizing I still wasn't part of the conversation. No passive-aggressive texts. No subtle guilt trips disguised as check-ins. No sudden emergencies I was expected to drop everything for. Just space, stillness, and me. But then came the crash I didn't expect, the kind that creeps in after the adrenaline wears off. I started second-guessing everything. Not the truth. I never once regretted speaking up. But the emptiness. The cold edge of aloneness I hadn't planned for. It wasn't just being shut out. It was waking up one day and realizing there were no more obligatory birthdays, no more group photos to dodge, no more pretending during holiday dinners. There was also no one to call when the apartment flooded. No one to text when I had a bad dream. No built-in safety net. Even if it had been mostly illusion, it had still been something. I found myself scrolling for hours, looking at other people's family pictures. Sunday brunches, baby showers, backyard barbecues. All those photos I used to fake smile through. Suddenly, I missed the idea of them. Even if they never included me. I knew I needed help. Not validation online. Not another comment thread of strangers as beautiful as they were. I needed something real. So I searched. Support groups for estranged adult children. I found one. Local. Tuesday nights. 15 minutes from my apartment. I almost didn't go. Because admitting I needed that space felt like admitting I was broken. But something told me to try. It was in the basement of a small community center. Cold folding chairs, old coffee in a pump pot, someone's donated cinnamon rolls on a paper plate. Nothing fancy. But the moment I walked in, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Recognition. There were 7 of us that night. All different ages, different stories, but the same haunted look in our eyes. The same cautious way of sitting, like we were waiting for someone to prove we didn't belong here either. We introduced ourselves, gave the cliff notes of our stories. When it was my turn, I just said, I told the truth about my family online. They told me I didn't exist. So I guess now I don't. An older woman named Bev leaned over and touched my hand. Sweetheart, you existed the whole time. They just refused to see it. That was the moment the tears finally came. Not out of pain, out of relief. Every Tuesday I went back. And every week I learned a little more about how to hold myself. How to separate guilt from grief. How to stop mistaking silence for peace. I stopped writing just to be heard, and started writing to heal. I even got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. My college roommate Layla. Jules, I saw your video. I had no idea. I'm proud of you. Let's get coffee soon. I said yes. We met the following Saturday. 2 hours turned into 5. It felt effortless. Light. Like I didn't have to tiptoe through conversation or scan every sentence for potential offense. She said something that stuck with me. You've always been this version of yourself. You just stopped hiding her. It hit me later that night. I had spent most of my life waiting to be chosen. By my mother. By my brother. By a family that only valued me when I was convenient. But I'd never asked myself to choose me. Never offered myself the thing I'd begged them for. Unconditional acceptance. So I stood in the mirror. No makeup. No filter. Just me and the soft hum of the streetlight outside. And I said it out loud. I choose you, Julia. It felt silly, but it also felt real. The kind of real no apology from them could ever give me. I didn't know what the next chapter of my life would look like. But for the first time ever, I knew who the main character was. Me. No longer a ghost in the background. No longer a placeholder in someone else's narrative. I was writing the story now. I hadn't planned to see anyone that day. It was supposed to be a quick grocery run. In and out. A cart of basics, a box of tea I liked, maybe a frozen pizza for Friday night. I was halfway down the cereal aisle when I heard it. Julia. At first, I thought I imagined it. It had been years. But when I turned around, it wasn't a ghost. It was Aunt Karen. Of all my relatives, she was the one I had the most complicated feelings about. She never outright excluded me the way the others did. She wasn't warm exactly, but she wasn't cruel either. More like passively complicit. She saw everything. She just never did anything about it. There she was, standing behind a cart with almond milk and gluten-free waffles. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I just felt taller. It's been a while, she said, forcing a smile. Yeah, it has. She stared at me, like I was a test she hadn't studied for. Her eyes scanned my face, like she was trying to read the version of me that existed now. Independent, outspoken, unapologetic. I've seen your posts. I nodded. I figured. You didn't hold back. I didn't lie either. She looked down at her cart, then back at me. You know, your mom's really hurt. She feels like you blindsided her. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice level. She's hurt because I stopped pretending everything was fine. Aunt Karen shifted uncomfortably. You could have talked to us. Privately. That made me laugh, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You mean like all those times I tried to? The times I was brushed off or told I was too sensitive. Like when I was excluded from family photos or when you all laughed and said, "Oh, Julia, don't make it about you." She had no reply. Just a weak shrug. Families aren't perfect, she offered. No. But they're supposed to try. I could feel the conversation turning cold, brittle. But I wasn't here for a fight. I just wanted her to see me. Really see me. Maybe for the first time. You stood there, Karen. All those years. You watched it happen. You saw how they treated me. And you said nothing. That silence hurt more than anything Daniel ever said. Her eyes welled up. I didn't know what to do. You didn't have to do. You just had to care. Silence again. But this time it felt different. Heavy. I never stopped loving you, Julia, she whispered. I believed her. But it didn't change the truth. Love that doesn't protect isn't love. It's just comfort. For you. She nodded slowly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I didn't say it was okay. Because it wasn't. But I nodded back. Not as permission. As release. She reached out, just a small touch on my arm. I didn't flinch. But I didn't reach back either. I wasn't there to heal her. I was there to buy cereal. So I turned and walked away, leaving her with her almond milk and regret. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new journal. Not a blog post. Not a story for anyone else. Just me. I wrote about the encounter. How weird it felt. How sad. How much I wanted her to fight for me back then, and how strange it was to see her cry now, when the damage had already been done. And I wrote something I hadn't expected to feel. Maybe some people aren't monsters. Maybe they're just cowards in nice sweaters. Later, I checked my inbox. There was a message from a name I didn't recognize at first. Sasha D. It took me a second. Then I remembered. Sasha was my cousin Karen's daughter. We hadn't spoken in over 6 years. The message was short. Hi, Julia. I saw what you wrote. I've been quiet for too long. Can we talk? My chest tightened. Not with fear, with curiosity. Because what if, just maybe, someone else in the family was finally ready to stop pretending? I didn't respond right away. I needed to think. Because choosing myself didn't just mean setting boundaries. It also meant being intentional about who I let in, even if they came with apologies. But for the first time, I realized something powerful. I didn't feel desperate for reconciliation anymore. I felt in control. And that changed everything. I stared at the screen for a long time. Hi, Julia. I saw what you wrote. I've been quiet for too long. Can we talk? From Sasha, my cousin. The last time we spoke, I was 22. She had just gotten engaged, and I helped her pick out table runners for the wedding. After that, she vanished like the rest of them. I used to wonder if she forgot about me, or if she'd chosen the comfort of the family over the discomfort of truth. Maybe both. And now I didn't reply that night. Instead, I went for a walk. It was late, but the summer air was warm, and the streets were quiet. My mind buzzed with questions. Why now? What does she want? What if she's just another guilt delivery system in a familiar disguise? But another voice, quieter, calmer, whispered something else. What if she's trying to break the cycle too? The next morning, I replied, Hi, Sasha. I'd be open to talking. What did you want to say? She responded almost instantly. Can I call you? My stomach twisted. I wasn't ready for a call. Not yet. But I needed to hear her out, on my terms. Can you start with a message? I just want to understand what this is about first. There was a pause. Then, okay, here's the truth. I saw what you posted, and I believe you. I always knew something was off about how the family treated you, but I was scared to say anything. Scared they'd cut me off too. I read that sentence 3 times. I believe you. Those 3 words did something I didn't expect. They made me cry. She kept going. I remember when you were left out of the Christmas card that year. I asked Auntie why you weren't in it, and she said, Julia's always off doing her own thing. Like it was your fault. But you were always invited late, or not at all. And your birthday? I'll never forget how they forgot it 2 years in a row and claimed it was just bad timing. But they never forgot Daniel's. Ever. I couldn't stop shaking. Because I had gaslight myself for years, asking if I was imagining it all. Telling myself I was being dramatic. That I should just let it go. And now here was Sasha. Quiet Sasha. The one who always played by the rules. Confirming it all. She ended her message with something that left me breathless. I found Mom's old journal last year. I wasn't supposed to read it. But I did. Julia, there's stuff in there you need to know. About your mom. About what she said when you were a baby. I don't want to type it. But if you're ready, I'll tell you in person. My heart stopped. What could possibly be written in that journal? What did my mother say about me that Sasha didn't feel safe putting in writing? I waited 2 days before replying. I needed space. I needed to remember that curiosity wasn't the same as obligation. That I didn't owe anyone my emotional exposure. But I couldn't stop thinking about that journal. So I texted her. Let's meet. Public place. Just talk. We agreed on a small cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. Saturday afternoon. Bright daylight. Neutral ground. When I walked in, Sasha was already there, fiddling with her coffee cup. She looked older. Softer. A little nervous. So was I. We hugged, awkwardly, but real. Then we sat down. She didn't waste time. I read a passage where your mom wrote that she struggled to connect with you. That she always felt like you were more needy than Daniel. That you were emotionally exhausting. My throat tightened. Sasha looked at me, her voice shaking. She said, and I quote, "Some kids just don't come out lovable." I tried with Julia, but it always felt like work. I don't remember breathing for the next minute. I just sat there, fists clenched, stomach sinking. I had felt it my whole life. The way she looked through me. The way every hug felt like a favor. But to see it written down, to know that it wasn't in my head, it didn't bring relief. It brought grief. Because now I knew I had spent my whole life trying to earn a kind of love my mother had decided I didn't deserve from the beginning. Sasha reached across the table. I'm so sorry, Julia. I should have said something sooner. I nodded, barely able to speak. You didn't create this. But thank you for showing me the truth. And I meant it. Because sometimes, what breaks your heart is also what sets you free. That night, I didn't cry. I wrote. I poured it all into the page. Not for the internet. Not for applause. But for me. For the little girl who had wondered what was wrong with her. And now finally knew. Nothing. There was never anything wrong with me. The damage was never mine to carry. The morning after meeting Sasha, I woke up different. Not lighter exactly, but clearer. Like the fog that had clouded my life for years had finally burned off, and all that remained was the raw, honest terrain of truth. No illusions. No more hoping for people to become who they never were. Just me. And for the first time, I was enough. I made tea and sat by the window, journal on my lap, phone turned face down. I needed silence. I needed me. I kept thinking about that line Sasha read from my mother's journal. Some kids just don't come out lovable. I used to think if I just did more, achieved more, smiled more, needed less, I could earn her love. But now I knew that kind of love was never mine to earn. Because it wasn't about me. It was about her. Her limitations. Her wounds. Her inability to see softness as strength. I had inherited her face, her voice, even some of her habits, but I did not have to inherit her brokenness. I didn't have to carry her coldness in my relationships. I didn't have to shrink myself to make others comfortable. I didn't have to become the version of Julia that kept everyone else unbothered, but kept me invisible. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I would. I posted a video. Not a blog. Not a clever quote. Just me. Face to camera. Voice steady. Heart open. Hi. My name is Julia. And I used to think I was hard to love. I'm not. I was just surrounded by people who didn't know how to love without control. I told them about the party. The maybe next year card. The family photo I wasn't asked to be in. The journal. The sentence that broke something deep inside me, and also stitched something else back together. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was honest. And it was mine. The video went viral within hours. Not because it was shocking, but because it was relatable. People flooded my inbox. Your story is my story. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for putting it into words. A girl from New Mexico messaged me and said she'd been excluded from her sister's wedding photos. A woman from Ohio said her mother used to joke that she was the extra child. Even a man from the UK told me he'd grown up being called the serious one, code for the one we don't understand, so we push away. And for once, I didn't feel alone. Not because I was suddenly popular, but because I realized my story had never been about just me. It was about every person who had sat at a dinner table and felt like a guest in their own family. Every person who learned how to read a room before they learned how to read. Every person who kept showing up, hoping, trying, shrinking, only to be told, with silence or sarcasm, that they were too much and not enough all at once. That night, I lit a candle and wrote one final letter. Not to send. Not even to read out loud. Just to write. To my mother. I forgive you. Not because you asked. Not because you changed. But because I am not spending the rest of my life bleeding from wounds you never admitted to causing. I signed it. Then I burned it. And I watched the smoke rise like a soul being set free. The next morning I got up early. I took myself to breakfast. Wore my favorite blue dress. Brought a book and ordered extra whipped cream on my coffee. And I sat at that little corner table, sunlight spilling across the page, smiling like a woman who had just come home to herself. Because that's exactly what I had done. They didn't choose me. But I did. And that has made all the difference. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.